Hi guys, I'm Gabby and welcome to my channel if you're new here, and if you're returning, thank you so much and welcome back. In today's video, we'll be talking about 3 reasons your visa may be delayed. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you know the immigration process can take weeks, months, and even years for some of us. And some of you are probably waiting right now. These delays, although quite common, are still incredibly frustrating for those of us who are seeking a visa. So let's talk about it. One of the 3 different causes of delays you might be facing during your immigration process is no other than the infamous backlog cases. At the beginning of the pandemic, many governmental offices had to close for months on end, and this included immigration agencies like USCIS and MVC. This event resulted in a huge backlog of immigration paperwork that USCIS and MVC is still working on today. The National Visa Center is a sector of the U.S. Department of State that prepares immigrant visa cases for a decision by a U.S. embassy or consulate. They help manage the immigrant visa process by getting everything ready for the interview. A backlog develops when the number of cases submitted exceeds the number of cases processed. An MVC backlog is the result of many new cases, but not enough being processed. Each time USCIS approves a case, such as Form I-130, also known as the Petition for an Alien Relative, this increases the backlog. After USCIS approves your case, like the Form I-130, it forwards your approved petition to MVC. It is MVC's job to manage your case until it is documentarily complete. Documentarily complete refers to cases where all necessary documents have been collected. As a courtesy to the public, MVC creates a monthly immigrant visa backlog report. The report gives a snapshot that shows where MVC is for that month. The first line of that report shows the number of cases that are documentarily complete. The second column on this table refers to cases that are actually scheduled for an interview during that month. MVC schedules your appointment with the respective U.S. embassies or consulates. And the final column is a balance of cases remaining after interviews have been scheduled for that particular month. The interview appointments are scheduled on a first in and first out manner. The following month documentarily completed cases are typically larger than the previous month pending cases because there's always a constant influx of new documentarily complete cases. This can make the process very slow. In the best case scenario, MVC attempts to schedule appointments at an embassy or consulate within 3 months of accepting all requested documentation. But unfortunately, the government's response to the pandemic negatively impacted the visa processing times. Due to local restrictions on public places like consular buildings, this limited the ability of consular officials to see visa applicants. Furthermore, U.S. governments also canceled many of its services. U.S. embassies and consulate closures made it impossible to process immigrant visa applications, as all of these generally require an in-person interview. And fewer applications being submitted during the pandemic meant less revenue for the Department of State, resulting in many vacant Department of State consular office positions during the year 2020 and 2021 not being filled. This further reduced the capacity of the agencies to process visa applications, so MVC's backlog grew more and more larger. Although MVC has claimed some improvement, however, the pandemic continues to severely impact the number of visa embassies and consulates abroad are able to process, and the constraints vary based on local conditions and restrictions. Reason number 2 that your visa may be delayed might come as a surprise. But one of the causes of delays in the immigration process is simply a loss of paperwork. Yes, you heard that correctly. The immigration agencies are incredibly large with many moving parts and more applications coming in that they can sometimes handle. So lost paperwork is a real possibility. So it's important to keep track of where your application is in the process and whether you are facing a normal delay or a possible loss of paperwork. USCIS and MVC is no different than any other massive government organization. They are heavily burdened with a large workload and are riddled with antiquated and inefficient processes. Several agencies make up the overall immigration system, such as the Department of State and the National Visa Center, as well as USCIS and consular offices. Each year, over 9 million forms are filed with USCIS. So human error does occur, and these agencies do sometimes lose parts or even your entire application packages. But there are preventive measures that you can utilize, particularly for those of you who still must submit your documents through the mail. The first tip is to do not send originals. Generally, USCIS will only require you to send photocopies of the requested supporting documents. In some cases, they may request originals, but only when specifically requested should you submit an original document. Keep your originals in a safe place. In some cases, you might still need them at the interview. Copy the original and official version of your document and send that copy to USCIS or the requesting agency. Usually USCIS or the consular officer will view the originals when you bring them with you to the interview. The next tip is to make photocopies of all your items. I highly recommend you make a photocopy of everything that you mail and or upload to any governmental agency. Copies of birth certificates, marriage certificates, and notice of action letters all take time to obtain. So any additional supported evidence you may submit, like photographs, declarations, affidavits, etc., whatever the document is, please be sure to make a copy of it. Keep your copies of all your immigration records in a safe place. They may come in handy later should you have to replace your original application if it was lost. If USCIS has already lost your application, the easiest thing to do is to file another copy. If you have saved a copy of all your documents, you can refile relatively easily. Sometimes your visa can face a delay if the consular office believes your application must undergo additional review before proceeding further. Administrative processing extends outside normal processing times. The consular might need extra information to determine your eligibility for a visa. An individual may face administrative processing for a number of reasons. Administrative processing takes place after the visa interview. Before issuing a visa, a consular officer reviews different databases to determine if information exists that may impact the individual's eligibility for a visa. So a hit on a particular database occurs when there is a match between a visa applicant and a database. These hits may be based on criminal convictions, security risks, and prior visa overstays or denials. But there's also other reasons as well. When an individual case has been tagged in a database, the Department of State, at the request of the consular office, may initiate administrative processing. The purpose of the administrative process is to ensure that the applicant poses no security or related risk to the United States. After being placed in administrative processing, the applicant will receive a Section 221G letter indicating that this case will be put on hold until the applicant's visa eligibility can be determined. Generally, there are two types of 221G cases. There's administrative processing cases and post-related cases, in which the consular officer requires additional information or documentation before making a final decision. If you did not receive notice stating that your application was placed in administrative processing, then you will want to confirm with the consular officer handling your visa application that your case has been indeed placed in administrative processing. To confirm your case, you may visit or email the consulate. When an individual is placed in administrative processing, it does not necessarily mean your visa is or will be denied. Your visa eligibility simply has not yet been determined. So whether or not the visa application will be denied or approved will depend on the results of your administrative review and will vary based on an individual basis. And according to the Department of State, most administrative processing cases are resolved within 60 days after the visa interview. However, individuals should review the appropriate consulate website or embassy website to determine the average length of time for administrative processing in that particular country. Also, it's important to note that the time period for administrative processing is outside normal processing times. The administrative processing period will also vary based on the individual circumstances of each case. Unfortunately, there is no formal process to challenge administrative processing. However, additional documents clarifying the individual case may and should be sent to the consular office or the embassy handling your case. After being placed in administrative processing, if the consular office handling your application has a website, review the consular website to determine if there are any particular instructions to follow when making status inquiries. For example, some embassies may ask that applicants wait 2 months before contacting the office. Also, the Department of State maintains a site that allows applicants to check the status of their visa. So visit their website and make sure to provide all the relevant information, including name, date of birth, passport, when and where the applicant submitted the visa application. If it has been more than 60 days since being placed in administrative processing, you should contact the consulate or embassy handling your case. However, it is important to note the time period for administrative processing varies by country. You may wish to check the consulate website or the embassy's website to determine the average time period for your administrative processing times. If your administrative review has been pending more than 60 days, you'll want to reach out via email to the Department of State. So these are the 3 reasons why your visas may be delayed. Of course, these are not the only reasons, but I hope that this has helped you gain some clarity. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment below, and share this with others who you think it may help. Thank you for watching, and again, I hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.